Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Tech Collector. Today's episode is going to be another one of those headphone reviews. You'll remember a couple weeks ago we did the whole Spirit Torino lineup, and those range from $1,500 up to $4,000 for a pair. Today I've got a headphone that, pretty much with its amp comes in a similar price range as the top of the line Spirit Torino, but it is a headphone that, in my experience, outdoes 99% of what I have heard across any headphones in the 20-ish years that I've collected headphones. I've had all the big ones. I've had the Sony R10s, all the classics, the classic Grados back when they were, a little bit more special. And, a lot of the stacks. I've had the Omegas, the Omega 009s. I've had all of those things in my systems with Blue Hawaii special editions to run them. And they all do things fantastically. And that's why I bought them and kept them. But these draw your attention so quickly because of the dynamics and the clarity that it's just out of this world. The quality you get is just absolutely out of this world. I really want to, thank Justin over at Headamp for letting me borrow this particular setup to test out, because I'm trying to get something that would be both appropriate for monitoring of audio as I do, podcast videos, everything along those lines, but also great musicality, to be able to listen to music. And these things, they've hit it out of the ballpark as far as I'm concerned. So let's go ahead and see what comes in the box. Comes in a seriously nice box. Obviously, it's a pretty nice case, probably better than I've gotten on a lot of higher end headphones. Pretty impressed with it. Out of the box, the thing is already impressing you. Once you open it up, you'll see got a lot of carbon fiber look. They're very strange looking headphones, there's no doubt about that. I've had a few laughs as people walk through the room and see me wearing them, but for the sound quality, I think it's probably worth it. I'll put up with the laughs. These things are obviously the exotic hypercars of the headphone world. The carbon fiber, the sharp lines, you see the Lamborghini, you see the Ferrari, you got the flair, and these definitely have the flair, there's no doubt about that. Got the carbon fiber, you've got the titanium look, you've got the embossed leather. It's trying to be a little bit of an exotic, and it pulls it off. Looking at it on the desk, they actually look pretty cool. Looking on your head, that's where it gets a little bit goofy. Let's talk a bit about comfort. They are comfortable to a point. They're not going to win any awards for comfort or ergonomics. Like if you compare them to like the old AKG K1000s, there's less temple pressure for sure. It's a little bit lower jaw, upper jaw kind of pressure, but not nearly as much as what you used to get with the K1000s. It does have kind of a vintage medical device feel when you try to strap yourself into these things. You got straps on the back, on the top. It does feel like you're putting something on, not just throwing on some headphones. There's a whole number of ways that you can actually order this thing. Several different combinations, whether the Jotenheim with the DAC, Jotenheim without the DAC, whether it has a little transformer box so you can drive it off your own speaker amps. I'm going with the Jotenheim right now, and it works really well. I'm only up about, at the maximum, about 40% of volume control in the Jotenheim, running out of the Brooklyn Bridge DAC as my DAC. Just a quick glance at the specs, you will see that 425 grams as we discussed earlier, which is a really good weight. You do not feel the weight of the headphones. You feel a little bit of pressure, kind of upper jaw from the pads on the side of your face. And, it says you need to have a 100 watt speaker amp if you're going to use your transformer box. I don't have that, so I'm not testing it, but just so you know that. Check out the RAAL Requisite website here. They're based out of Serbia, which was kind of surprising. I know RAAL's been around for quite a while, and I've had speakers with some of their ribbon tweeters on them before, and always been very impressed with them. This one, you can kind of see some of the things that you can get them with. If you buy them directly from RAAL, I think they only list it with either the Jotenheim or the transformer, but they're working on a new amp of their own to sell alongside it, and I know there's several other of the big name vendors out there that are contemplating putting together amps for these, because they are a special headphone that people want to, I guess, get involved with. What you really see, a lot of, there've been a ton of reviews, and almost all of them I think have been exceedingly positive when it really comes down to it. When it when we talk about this type of headphone, we've had in history the AKG 1000 that a lot of people liked. I had a whole closet full of different past labs amps I used for all my K1000s back in the day. There's just not a lot of headphones that can give you the sound stage that some of these ear speakers do. But when you add the dynamics and clarity that you get with this particular set of headphones and that soundstage, it's world class as far as I'm concerned.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I'm not saying you're going to want to wear these on the street. People will think you're a little bit weird. But in the comfort of your home, amongst family, you can probably get by with it. Like I've said, they are fairly comfortable. There's a lot of adjustability, backwards, forwards, where you put it on your face, and then how you're actually going to angle the drivers. They're goofy looking no matter how you do them, so you might as well just try them in every different position and figure out what works best with you. I found two kind of sweet spots, I think. I like it a little bit far forward and wide angled, or on some music I actually push it farther back and clamp them down a little bit, and I get pretty good sound quality. Everything I've listened to, and I'll go through some of it here and just kind of talk about what I'm hearing, but I think classical, fantastic. The sound staging that it does, the dynamics. In a lot of classical, you get a lot of changes in dynamics in classical music, and this excels at that more than the speakers. And you have a lot of the nicer, larger, Magnapans, those kind of things that can do the dynamics really well, and they can do it at a louder level, but they're not right in your ear, and they're not essentially not being impacted by the room like these headphones are. And for that reason, they do fantastic things. I think they're probably a little bit brighter than neutral when it really comes down to it. The bass, it says it cuts off about 30, which is more than sufficient, but you definitely get a lot of that detail, and that's what I've kind of been into. I like the R10s for that. I like a lot of the vintage Sony Qualias for the detail. So you do get a bit more on the high end, but it is very well blended, and it is not anything that stands out. You don't notice it unless you sit there and try to think about it and try to figure out if you're getting anything that's a little bit different sounding. So as far as, musicality, I think it's an A plus. As far as using it for, mastering in the studio, I think that's what they might have originally been intended to do. And I think they would excel at that. The only thing that you get is they are so detailed that you might get a different image of what you're actually putting together than what people out there using lesser headphones or speakers or whatever it may be. They might not be getting some of this detail, so you might have a little bit of a letdown, just because these are not ordinary headphones. They're not ordinary speakers. They are ear speakers, and they are ribbons, so they are dynamic, they're clean, they do everything very well, and it's just in another class from most of the modern headphones that you listen to. I mean, you can get some stacked things that sound absolutely fantastic on the right amplifications. There are several planar magnetic speakers or headphones that do really well. That they kind of transport you into the music, but feeling that you are somewhere listening to live music, the dynamics you get with that, with a piano, things along those lines, these blow everything that I've really listened to recently out of the water. There's just no comparison. There are some of my vintage headphones that might do a couple of things better, but as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing really in the class of these right now. So basically, as soon as I started listening to these things, I knew that they were something a bit special, and I started pouring through all of my audiophile favorites to see what they did to them, what benefits you got out of having these as compared to the other headphones I've had in my systems over the years, or even the big my big stereo system with the Magico M5s and subwoofers and everything, and see how they actually compare. Something really this relatively cheap might work with it. So I went immediately for live well recorded piano, because that's the hardest thing for most of these speakers and or headphones to actually get right. And, you know, this one, you definitely are not going to get the low end of the piano with these guys. Not like, you know, back with the headphones that I used a couple weeks ago, you know, they could get some level of that thump, that low end bass of the piano, but they did not have the dynamics. I mean, the dynamics can be shocking in this particular album, and they certainly are right now. It's just outrageously good listening to this. I mean, I could listen to the whole album actually, because it gets, piano is one of the more dynamic instruments, you know, when it's really played hard, and he goes after it sometimes, and it jumps out of the silence, and it's just outrageous, like a lot of ribbon speakers do. But having the ribbon speakers playing directly into your ears, it's a whole other game. So this is one, it's a live recording that's not one of his more famous ones, but it's one that I think probably better captures who he was as a performer, but it also, with the right system, with a good system that can kind of pull apart, you know, some of the players on the stage. It's two different bands and him, and it's definitely not, you know, his typical, you know, type of fare. It's a little bit harder edge, I guess, this particular concert, but a good system can separate these apart and break them up, and it sounds really good. I've heard it really good on some of my bigger speaker systems, and I've heard it fairly decent on some of the better headphone systems. Just kind of want to see what these guys can do with their soundstage, with their dynamics, and really, you know, just with, I guess, the way that they present themselves, you know, ribbon speakers right in your ears, to see how they actually might sound with this. And I'm going to just do Bring It On Home to Me, because why not? It's a great song. That's very good. Probably good enough I should have a beverage session. So why don't you guys go ahead and chat amongst yourselves? I'll be right back with you. Hey, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the little interlude there. I certainly did. We're going to move on to some classical. You know, anything that has this level of dynamics is going to do fantastically with classical. So I went to something that's a bit big and bombastic to kind of see what they can really do when you drive them. So we're going to do from the Firebird Suite, you know, the Dance of Infernal King. Just see what it does and see how well it stands up, you know, to something a song I know well, that I've played on a lot of really big systems with multiple subwoofers and everything else you might imagine. Soundstage is wider than would be expected from headphones, but I guess these are ear speakers, not headphones. So that somewhat makes sense. It gets the tone of the brass instruments very well. Waiting for it to get to something a bit more complex to see how it kind of pulls everything apart here. Yeah, you don't really get any noise whatsoever from this particular system, the lineup that I have here. So when we're going from the quietest to the loudest in the song, it can be pretty impressive to see that range, especially when it's almost immediate. And this song, it's very cool. I don't know that we'll say that classical is the #1 format for this particular type of headphones, because I've really tried nothing yet that they haven't been really good with. But if you are a classical fan and you know, you have the resources, I would say this is probably one of the best ways I can imagine to listen to it in headphone version. So this time I decided to give it something that I think it will have a little bit more trouble with, and that's something that is 98% of the song is bass. Bella Fleck, you know, Flight of the Cosmic Hippo. There's a very significant bass line that makes up most of the song. So we'll see how it does compared to big speaker systems and really to other headphones that we might have listened to. So right off, it doesn't have the hit of even like the Spirit Torinos that I had a couple weeks ago. It is not one note bass. You can definitely get the different notes that he's playing. It doesn't have the hit up front. It has, you know, has the good rumble, but it does not necessarily hit quite as hard as it does on my big speaker system or some maybe like the Grado PS1s, vintage bass monsters like those. But it does well, and the fact that this is so sparsely instrumented, makes the dynamics of this particular headphone really pop. So it actually sounds really good. Another highly recommended song for this particular setup. I haven't found anything yet that I don't highly recommend for this setup. It's pretty awesome. Well, I think we've probably hit the point where you've watched me listen to enough music. Doesn't really do a whole lot of good for you. I can tell you that I found nothing that I did not think this really covered very well, especially for a headphone. I found a lot of headphones, you have to kind of temper your, what you expect from the music. These are not your typical headphones. These are ear speakers, and they are kind of, I guess, like the K1000s on steroids and a little bit more comfortable. But, the dynamics with the ribbon, outrageous. The bass is good, up close to you with such a small ribbon. It does the bass well. Really no complaints there. I think, across the board, for the money that you pay for these guys, it's hard to beat. I don't know that there's anything that will beat them unless, I don't even know, unless you just have to have that top-notch bass in your music, which some people do. But I don't know that there's anything that across the board does everything as well as what these guys do. Highly recommended. If you can find yourself a set, once the world goes back to normal and people get to go out and listen to music, try to listen to them, because they might basically give you an experience you have not had listening to headphones. I think they might be in a whole different class based on all the ones that I've owned, what I've had, all the way across the board. I think these guys just excel, and highly recommended. So we'll see you on the next one. I think it's actually going to be more of those microphone tests. We got a whole lot of new studio mics in, so we're going to be doing some more of those tests, some really nice ones too. So we'll see if I can finally come up with a microphone that I actually want to use for this channel. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.